Have you ever wondered what actually happens when absolute insanity meets a veterinary clinic? I tracked down 69 of the most mind-blowing, absurd, and downright hilarious complaints real pet groomers and vets have ever dealt with. We are talking about people demanding refunds for their dog's personality and accusing groomers of actual magic. You will not believe these people own animals. 1. Pet diet math is apparently a completely different universe. A furious woman stormed into a clinic demanding a refund for weight loss kibble because her golden retriever had actually gained 4 pounds. The vet was baffled until the owner proudly explained her strategy. She was giving the dog his normal giant bowl of regular food and just adding the expensive diet kibble on top as a healthy dessert. She genuinely believed the diet food had magical fat-burning properties that canceled out the regular calories. What is the craziest diet logic you have ever heard? 2. One groomer had to deal with a guy who called the police because he thought they swapped his dog. He brought in a severely matted poodle mix that looked like a walking tumbleweed. Underneath all those dreadlocks was a tiny, skinny, very happy little dog. The owner refused to take the dog home, yelling that his actual pet was much thicker and had a completely different personality, completely ignoring the fact that the dog was jumping into his arms. 3. Medical science does not currently offer past life regression testing for felines, but try telling that to this lady. A cat owner left a scathing 1-star review because the vet refused to perform a DNA test to prove her tabby cat was reincarnated from her deceased grandmother. She insisted the cat gave her the exact same judgmental glares her grandma used to give at Thanksgiving dinners. When the vet gently explained this was impossible, the woman accused them of participating in a massive cover-up. 4. After a standard summer shave, a woman called the grooming salon in tears, screaming that they had ruined her dog's social life. She claimed her Pomeranian was now deeply embarrassed, refusing to make eye contact with the neighborhood dogs and hiding behind the couch whenever the doorbell rang. She demanded the groomer pay for canine therapy sessions to help her dog cope with the trauma of looking ridiculous in front of his friends. 5. A vet had to patiently explain the facts of life to an angry guy who was furious that his female bulldog got pregnant. The owner swore up and down that he kept her locked in the yard and she only ever hung out with his roommate's male dog. When the vet pointed out the obvious suspect, the guy waved his hands and said that was impossible, because those two dogs were essentially brother and sister and would never do that. 6. Is a tiny piece of blue ribbon going to destroy a dog's street cred? One groomer got a 20-minute lecture from a macho guy because they put a cute blue bow on his male Rottweiler after a fresh cut. He was deeply concerned that the bow was going to make the dog soft. He literally asked the staff if the accessory was going to confuse the dog about his identity and make him stop barking at the mailman. 7. A client rushed her pug to the emergency vet, absolutely panicked because she found a strange, fleshy growth on the dog's stomach. She was crying, preparing for the absolute worst news, and demanding an immediate biopsy. The vet took one look, sighed, and had to politely inform the weeping woman that her male dog did indeed have nipples. The woman was furious, arguing that only female dogs have those, and accused the vet of calling her stupid. 8. Anyone who owns a Jack Russell Terrier knows they are basically made of pure caffeine and chaos. But one lady demanded a complete refund for her puppy's vaccinations, claiming the shots instantly made her dog hyperactive and disobedient. The vet gently reminded her about the natural energy levels of the breed, but she refused to accept logic. She insisted her puppy was totally calm until the needle touched his skin. Have you ever owned a dog with absolutely zero off switch? 9. A groomer experienced the wrath of a wealthy client who was livid that her poodle's natural highlights had been washed away during a bath. The groomer tried to explain that dogs do not naturally grow blonde streaks in their hair, and what had been washed down the drain was just months of dried mud and lawn debris. The client scoffed, called the groomer a liar, and said her dog was simply sun-kissed from his time in the Hamptons. 10. Picture this. You are an exotic animal vet. and a young guy is aggressively arguing with you for an hour because you will not prescribe his iguana a vegan diet. He claimed feeding the lizard insects was morally wrong and demanded a plant-based alternative with the exact same nutritional profile. The vet had to politely explain that reptiles do not care about human ethical dilemmas and just want to eat some crickets. 11. A woman dropped off her absolutely filthy, mud-caked doodle mix for a full spa day. When she returned to pick him up, she burst into tears, claiming the groomer had washed away her dog's natural protective oils, and now he would definitely catch a cold. She demanded they put the dirt back on him or provide her with a heavy winter coat, even though it was the middle of July and 95 degrees outside. 12. One vet tech took a phone call from an angry guy who wanted to sue the clinic for emotional distress. He claimed the microchip they implanted in his beagle was broken because he could not track the dog on his smartphone via GPS. The tech had to explain that a microchip is just a tiny barcode scanner thing for animal shelters, not a top-secret government spy device with satellite capabilities. The guy hung up and left a terrible review. 13. A very demanding client instructed her groomer to give her Persian cat a lion cut, which means shaving the body but leaving the head, paws, and tail fluffy. When she picked the cat up, she was outraged. She said the cat looked absolutely ridiculous. Instead of accepting her mistake, she demanded the groomer use professional hair extensions to weave the shaved fur back onto the cat's body right then and there. 14. We all love saving money, but this guy took it to another level. He caused a massive scene in a waiting room because the vet charged him for a checkup. His argument? Veterinarians choose this profession because they love animals, so charging money to help a sick puppy is fundamentally hypocritical. He yelled that vets should just rely on donations and the sheer joy of seeing wagging tails instead of acting like real doctors. Surprisingly, he still had to pay the bill. 15. A groomer was verbally attacked by a customer who accused them of stealing her dog's vocal cords during a basic wash and trim. The dog was usually a massive barker, but came home completely exhausted from the excitement of the salon and just went straight to sleep. The woman called the police, convinced the salon was running a secret underground canine surgery ring, all because her miniature schnauzer wanted to take a 4-hour nap. 16. At a high-end city clinic, a furious woman demanded the vet put her chihuahua on anti-anxiety medication because the dog was shivering constantly. The vet did a full workup, found nothing wrong, and then pointed out that the dog was completely naked in a freezing air-conditioned room. The woman argued that clothes were unnatural for animals and refused to buy a sweater, insisting a daily pill was the only logical solution to the shivering problem. 17. One client brought in a heavily matted Shih Tzu and specifically signed a waiver agreeing that the dog had to be shaved down to the skin for health reasons. When she came back and saw her bald little dog, she screamed that the groomer had violated her pet's constitutional rights. She claimed the dog was now a victim of aesthetic assault and demanded the groomer pay for a custom-fitted canine wig until the hair grew back. 18. A guy stormed into a vet clinic holding a bag of premium dog food he bought from them, demanding a refund because his cat refused to eat it. The receptionist stared at him blankly and pointed out the giant picture of a golden retriever on the bag, clearly labeled as large breed dog kibble. The man argued that food is food, and the clinic was running a scam by tricking animals into being picky eaters just to make more money. 19. There was a dead silent pause on the phone during this late-night emergency call. A frantic owner called at 3 in the morning, absolutely hysterical because her puppy was making terrible clicking noises on the hardwood floor. She was convinced his little bones were breaking. The vet calmly asked when the dog last had a nail trim. The woman quietly whispered that she did not know dogs had fingernails, and promptly hung up out of sheer embarrassment. 20. A grooming salon had a regular customer who always complained that her white poodle came back looking too bright. She actually accused the groomers of using industrial bleach on her dog and claimed the harsh white color was hurting her eyes when they watched television together. She demanded they wash the dog in weak coffee next time to give him a more vintage, sepia-toned aesthetic that would match her living room decor. 21. One vet faced an incredibly angry couple who demanded a paternity test for their litter of puppies. They owned a purebred French bulldog and were furious that the puppies came out looking like scruffy terriers. They accused the vet clinic of somehow artificially inseminating their dog during a routine checkup 6 months prior. They completely ignored the fact that their neighbor owned a scruffy terrier that constantly dug holes under their backyard fence. 22. Try not to laugh at this one. A guy threw a massive tantrum at a pet spa because they refused to paint his pit bull's nails with human nail polish. The groomers offered a dog-safe alternative, explaining that human chemicals are toxic. He yelled that the dog-safe stuff was not glossy enough and accused the staff of trying to suppress his dog's glamorous personality just because she was a tough-looking breed. Does your pet have a glamorous side? 23. A lady brought her extremely overweight dachshund to the vet and was incredibly offended when the doctor suggested a strict diet. She argued that the dog was not fat, but simply carrying a lot of generational trauma that manifested as physical weight. She demanded the vet prescribe herbal tea and calming crystals instead of reducing the dog's daily intake of raw hot dogs and cheese slices. The vet had to politely explain that calories do not care about emotional baggage. 24. A groomer received a furious email from a client claiming her dog no longer recognized her after a haircut. The woman had brought in a dog whose hair was so overgrown it covered his eyes entirely. Once the hair was cut, the dog could finally see clearly and realized his owner was not the giant blurry blob he thought she was. The woman demanded a refund because the dog kept staring at her like she was a total stranger. 25. One vet clinic got a strongly worded letter from a guy who was upset that they used a rectal thermometer on his cat. He claimed it was a violation of the cat's dignity and insisted there had to be a way to check the temperature by just feeling the cat's forehead, like his mom used to do to him. He even suggested they should just ask the cat if it felt warm, completely missing the point of veterinary medicine. 26. A woman brought her perfectly healthy golden retriever to the groomer and demanded they dye the dog entirely green for St. Patrick's Day. When the groomer politely declined, citing the lack of pet-safe dye on hand, the woman threw a massive fit. She yelled that her dog was going to be the laughingstock of the local parade and threatened to dye the dog herself using green food coloring and a spray bottle. 27. A highly agitated man called his vet to complain that his newly adopted rescue dog was totally broken. He said the dog kept staring at the wall and ignoring all his commands. The vet asked what language the man was speaking to the dog. It turned out the dog was originally from a shelter in Mexico and only responded to basic commands in Spanish. The guy was furious that the vet did not provide a translation dictionary with the adoption papers. 28. A groomer had to deal with a deeply offended woman who claimed they had body-shamed her corgi. The groomer had simply mentioned that the dog might need a slightly larger harness because the old one was digging into his skin. The owner yelled that her dog was perfect just the way he was and accused the groomer of pushing unrealistic canine beauty standards onto a naturally thick and curvy breed. 29. Yes, you heard that right. A house spider. A client burst into a veterinary clinic holding a completely ordinary spider in a glass jar, demanding a full medical evaluation. She said the spider lived in her bathroom, was named Kevin, and had been looking a bit sluggish lately. When the vet gently explained that they only treated mammals and reptiles, the woman screamed that they were discriminating against 8-legged pets. 30. One salon had a guy who demanded they blow-dry his husky on the absolute lowest, coolest setting possible. A husky has an incredibly dense double coat, so this process would literally take about 12 hours. When the groomer explained this, the guy argued that hot air would melt the dog's primal snow dog instincts and turn him into a weak, tropical animal. He ended up taking the soaking wet dog home to air dry in his air-conditioned basement. 31. A very angry lady left a terrible voicemail for her vet because the tick prevention medicine did not work as a magical force field. She found a dead tick on her dog's fur and was absolutely livid. The vet had to call her back and explain that the medicine works by killing the tick after it bites the dog, not by projecting an invisible shield that deflects insects out of the air like a sci-fi spaceship. 32. A client brought her cat to the groomer for a simple nail trim and later called to complain that the cat was now walking funny on the hardwood floors. She claimed the groomer had ruined the cat's natural traction and demanded they pay to have wall-to-wall carpeting installed in her entire house so the cat would not slip. The groomer obviously refused, and the woman threatened to take the story to the local news. 33. One vet had a guy come in absolutely raging because his indoor cat got fleas. The man blamed the clinic, claiming the vet must have secretly planted flea eggs on the cat during its checkup 3 months ago to ensure repeat business. He completely ignored the fact that he regularly let his large, unwashed German Shepherd sleep right next to the cat every single night after playing in the local dog park. 34. A woman accused a groomer of stealing her dog's natural musk. She brought in a hound dog that had recently rolled in something absolutely foul in the woods, smelling like a mix of garbage and swamp water. After a thorough deskunking bath, the dog smelled like sweet vanilla. The owner was furious, saying the dog's tough woodland scent was his personal signature fragrance, and now he just smelled like a cheap candle. 35. A totally serious client asked a vet to perform plastic surgery on her bulldog to make him snore less, but specifically asked them not to fix his breathing. She said the snoring kept her awake at night, but she absolutely loved his flat, smushed face and did not want to alter his iconic look. The vet had to explain that the flat face was exactly why the dog could not breathe properly in the first place. 36. We are officially living in the future, and it is exhausting. A teenager yelled at a groomer, demanding they cut her poodle's hair to exactly match a heavily filtered, AI-generated picture she found on social media. The dog in the picture had perfectly spherical, floating ears and a neon purple tail. When told that was physically impossible without Photoshop, the girl accused the salon of being outdated and failing to keep up with modern canine aesthetics. 37. An irate man called the veterinary clinic, demanding to speak to the manager of the animal kingdom. His purebred hunting dog had completely failed a retrieving test, getting spooked by a loud noise and running back to the truck. He wanted a full refund on all the dog's past vaccinations and checkups, arguing that the vet clearly gave him defective medicine that ruined the dog's genetic hunting instincts. 38. A regular grooming client called to aggressively complain that her dog's new haircut was causing marital problems. She claimed her husband hated the short summer cut so much that he refused to look at the dog, which was causing tension in the house. She actually asked the groomer to call her husband and professionally explained that hair grows back because he would not believe her and was sleeping in the guest room over a shaved spaniel. 39. One vet had to deal with a client who refused to believe his dog had tapeworms, despite the visible evidence. The owner argued that his dog was highly intelligent and a certified good boy who would never eat anything gross enough to get worms. He accused the vet of trying to push a liberal parasite agenda to sell expensive deworming pills and insisted the little white things were just undigested grains of fancy organic rice. 40. Physics took a weird turn at this grooming salon. A woman returned an hour after picking up her freshly groomed Yorkie, demanding they undo the haircut. Why? She claimed the dog was now entirely too aerodynamic and was running around the house much too fast, knocking over her expensive vases. She wanted the groomer to tease the hair back out to create drag and slow the dog down. Have you ever heard of aerodynamic canine physics? 41. A very stressed guy rushed into the clinic insisting his male cat was broken because it kept trying to nurse on fuzzy blankets. The vet explained this was a common comfort behavior for cats weaned too early. The man was furious, shouting that it was unnatural and demanding hormone therapy to make the cat act more like a tough apex predator instead of a giant fuzzy baby. 42. A woman threw a fit at a pet salon because they would not let her stand right next to the grooming table and hold her dog's paw the entire time. The groomers explained that her presence was making the dog jumpy and dangerous with sharp scissors around. She accused them of trying to break the sacred energetic bond between mother and fur child, and ended up trying to watch through the window with binoculars. 43. One vet faced an incredibly angry woman who filed a formal complaint because the clinic's stethoscope was too cold. She brought in her hairless Sphinx cat and completely lost her mind when the metal touched its skin. She demanded the clinic buy a special microwave to preheat all medical equipment to exactly body temperature, arguing that her cat was highly sensitive to negative thermal energy. 44. A groomer got a screaming phone call from a guy who said his dog was ruined because the bandana tied around its neck was the wrong color. The groomer had used a red bandana, completely unaware that the man was a hardcore fan of a rival sports team that used blue. He claimed the groomer had cursed his house and demanded they pay for a professional sports exorcism to cleanse the dog's aura. 45. A client refused to pay her veterinary bill for a simple ear infection treatment, arguing that the dog had clearly caught the infection from the clinic's waiting room magazines. She claimed the dog had sniffed a dog sports magazine that was covered in bacteria from other sick animals. The vet tried to explain the biology of floppy-eared dogs and yeast infections, but she just kept threatening to call the health department. 46. A totally unhinged woman demanded her groomer install a tiny dog-sized mirror on the floor of the salon. She insisted her Maltese needed to approve of the haircut mid-process, and if the dog barked twice, the groomer had to stop and try a different style. When the groomer politely said they did not take styling advice from dogs, the woman stormed out, calling them close-minded oppressors of canine self-expression. 47. Haggling at a flea market is normal, but at a medical clinic? One extremely cheap guy tried to negotiate the price of a life-saving surgery for his dog by pulling out a coupon for a half-price oil change at a local mechanic. He looked the vet dead in the eye and asked if they did price matching. His logic was that a dog is basically just a biological engine, so fixing a stomach issue is exactly the same as changing a transmission. 48. A groomer was accused of shrinking a client's dog. The woman brought in a massive, fluffy Samoyed that was shedding its winter coat in huge clumps. After a heavy de-shedding treatment, the dog looked significantly smaller. The owner was completely hysterical, poking the dog and screaming that they had swapped her majestic wolf for a skinny imposter, refusing to believe that 90% of her dog's previous volume was just dead floating hair. 49. A vet got a furious email from a client claiming the clinic's automated text reminders were causing her dog severe anxiety. The woman said her phone pinged every time a reminder came through, and the dog associated that specific sound with the thermometer. She demanded the clinic hire a professional voice actor to call and sing the appointment reminders in a soothing baritone voice so her dog would not get triggered. 50. A guy walked into a pet salon and demanded they groom his totally wild, terrified feral cat that he had trapped in his garage that morning. The groomers took one look at the hissing, spitting ball of fury in the cage and refused. The man got wildly offended, calling them cowards and saying they clearly did not have the magic touch they advertised on their website, before leaving with the furious beast. 51. A receptionist had to patiently explain that they do not install ceramic toilet bowls for dogs. A furious woman let her Great Dane pee right on the reception desk and then blamed the clinic for not providing a dedicated indoor canine bathroom. She literally asked how they expected a civilized, high-class dog to relieve himself on a tree outside like a common wild animal. 52. A groomer dealt with a deeply paranoid client who demanded they save every single clipping of her dog's hair in a giant plastic bag. She refused to let them sweep it into the trash, claiming the government was going to raid the salon's dumpster to clone her prize-winning show dog. She paid for the grooming, grabbed a garbage bag full of dirty dog hair, and sprinted to her car looking over her shoulder. 53. One completely clueless owner called the vet to complain that the flea collar he bought was defective because his dog was still itching. The vet asked him to check if the collar was too loose. The man replied that the collar was sitting right next to the dog's bed on the floor because he thought it worked like a room freshener. He was genuinely mad that no one told him the dog actually had to wear it. 54. A highly dramatic woman caused a scene at a grooming salon because they used water to wash her dog. She insisted her precious lapdog was strictly hydrophobic and could only be cleaned using dry shampoo and gentle blasts of compressed air. When the groomers explained the dog was covered in actual mud and needed real soap, she accused them of trying to drown her baby and traumatize him for life. 55. Imagine wanting a refund on your dog because it is too nice. A furious client demanded a free replacement dog because her guard breed loved everyone and constantly brought toys to strangers instead of intimidating the mailman. She completely blamed the vet, claiming the routine puppy vaccinations had somehow neutralized the dog's aggression, and she wanted compensation for her broken security system. Has your guard dog ever aggressively cuddled an intruder? 56. A groomer got a highly aggressive text message from a client hours after an appointment, demanding to know what brand of shampoo was used. The woman claimed the scent was so intoxicating that her husband could not stop sniffing the dog, and she was genuinely getting jealous of her own pet. She demanded the salon stop using that specific soap because it was creating an unnatural love triangle in her household. 57. An angry guy stormed into the vet clinic holding a plastic bag full of his dog's poop. He slammed it on the counter and demanded a full refund for the premium dog food he bought, because the resulting poop did not look like the perfect, solid logs advertised on the back of the bag. He loudly argued that the food was clearly defective and threatened to leave the bag there until he got his money back. 58. A woman sued her local grooming salon in small claims court because they trimmed her dog's extremely long Grinch-like toe hair. She claimed those specific tufts of hair gave the dog special traction on her slippery marble floors, and without them, the dog was sliding around like a hockey puck. She wanted the salon to pay for custom rubber booties for all four paws until the wild foot hair grew back. 59. One vet received a strongly worded complaint from a client who was offended by the medical terminology used during a checkup. The vet had referred to the dog as a geriatric patient due to its advanced age. The owner threw a fit, yelling that age is just a number, and her dog identified as a youthful puppy. She demanded the clinic update their files to list the 15-year-old dog as a sprightly juvenile. 60. A groomer had to physically block the door when a wild-eyed man tried to bring a baby raccoon into the salon for a flea bath. The guy swore it was just a weird-looking cat he found in a dumpster and got highly aggressive when the groomer pointed out the mask and the ringed tail. He accused the salon of discriminating against alternative pet lifestyles and stormed off with his rabies vector. 61. A very wealthy client demanded her vet write a doctor's note to her homeowners association. Her dog loved to bark at exactly 3 in the morning, and the neighbors were complaining. She wanted the vet to officially diagnose the dog with a rare nocturnal vocalization disorder, proving the barking was a severe medical necessity and therefore protected by law. The vet obviously refused to invent a fake disease for a noisy terrier. 62. A highly demanding woman refused to pay her grooming bill because the bows put in her dog's hair did not perfectly color match her own outfit. She actually expected the groomer to inherently know she was wearing a pastel pink sweater that day and coordinate the dog's accessories accordingly. She argued that a true professional stylist would have psychic intuition about their clients' fashion choices and walked out leaving only a 10% tip. 63. A totally serious guy asked his vet if there was a medical reason his dog was sitting down way too aggressively. He claimed the heavy, large breed dog was dropping his full weight onto the floor and leaving tiny dents in his extremely expensive imported living room rug. When the vet stared at him in horror, the guy tried to backtrack, asking if they sold tiny orthopedic pillows the dog could wear like pants. 64. A groomer was yelled at by a client who was furious that her dog's nails were trimmed using standard clippers instead of a gentle nail file. She claimed the sharp clipping sound gave her rescue dog flashbacks to construction zones. She literally expected the groomer to sit there for an hour with a human emery board, slowly filing down thick canine nails by hand, and refused to pay the full price for the quick and painless clip. 65. A local vet clinic almost got raided by the police over a cat toy. An outraged woman called to report them for selling illegal drugs after she bought catnip from their retail display. Her cat had started rolling on the floor and acting crazy, leading her to believe the clinic had sold her feline narcotics. She was genuinely terrified her cat was going to start pawning the living room television to fund a catnip addiction. 66. A very agitated man brought his perfectly groomed poodle back to the salon, complaining that the dog's new haircut was completely ruining his home Wi-Fi signal. He had some wild conspiracy theory that the dense, curly hair acted as an antenna that boosted his router, and without the extra fluff, his internet was buffering. He demanded the groomer pay for a Wi-Fi extender to compensate for the lost canine signal strength. 67. Conspiracy theories come in all shapes and sizes. A woman aggressively confronted her vet because she believed the clinic's waiting room scale was rigged to fat-shame her cat. She weighed herself holding the cat at home and calculated a much lower number. She screamed that the vet's expensive digital scale was purposefully calibrated to add 2 pounds just so the clinic could push their expensive weight loss kibble on perfectly healthy, chunky cats. 68. A groomer dealt with a customer who burst into tears because her dog smelled too clean. She had brought in a farm dog that spent its life rolling in horse manure. After a deep scrub, the dog smelled like sweet berry shampoo. The woman cried that the dog had lost its rugged country soul and demanded the groomer rub a handful of fresh topsoil onto the dog's back before she would put him in her clean car. 69. This last one is actually genius, but still totally unhinged. A guy threatened to sue a veterinary clinic because they cured his dog's chronic ear infection way too quickly. He had been using the dog's constant head shaking as a perfect excuse to get out of endless family Zoom calls, claiming he had to go tend to his sick pet. He yelled that the fast-acting eardrops ruined his alibi, and now he had to actually talk to his mother-in-law. What is your go-to excuse to escape a video call? If you survived listening to all 69 of those disasters, congratulations. Now I need to know, if you had to deal with just one of these absolute nightmares in real life, which specific owner are you kicking out of your clinic first? Drop your answer in the comments. Hit the like button and subscribe for more absolute chaos.